Trump and Maduro collided in a confrontation that pushed the entire Western Hemisphere to the brink. This wasn't about ideology. This wasn't about diplomacy. This was a power struggle where one leader wanted to break a regime, and the other was fighting to stay alive politically and physically. Trump saw Maduro as a destabilizing force backed by America's biggest adversaries. Maduro saw Trump as an immediate threat who could crush him with a single decision. That's the foundation of everything that happened. The moment the Trump administration tightened sanctions, Venezuela's fragile economy went from damaged to critical. Fuel shortages, blackouts, empty shelves, and Trump's team knew it would hit exactly where it needed to hit. The regime's stability. From Washington's perspective, it was the cleanest way to weaken Maduro without deploying troops. Maduro understood the message instantly. This wasn't symbolic pressure. It was an attempt to suffocate his government. Inside the White House, Trump spoke about Venezuela in blunt, uncompromising terms. Asterisk, if he doesn't fall, we'll turn up the pressure. Asterisk, no negotiations, no softened language, just escalation. In Caracas, Maduro responded the only way he could, locking down the military, positioning armored vehicles in strategic points, and holding emergency meetings with generals who pledged loyalty under fear and obligation. The government went into full defensive mode. When sanctions began targeting high-ranking Venezuelan officers, the internal atmosphere shifted from tense to paranoid. Accounts frozen, real estate seized, international travel blocked. Suddenly, generals who once felt untouchable realized they were trapped. Some began panicking about others started suspecting their colleagues. Inside Maduro's circle, distrust became routine. Outside, the public suffered the consequences. Less fuel, fewer imports, more instability. Maduro tried to counter American pressure by embracing America's top geopolitical rivals. Russian military advisors flew in. Iranian aircraft landed with unknown cargo. China increased its influence quietly. 2. The Trump administration. This wasn't just provocation. It was a direct threat inside the U.S. sphere of influence. Trump reacted immediately. "They want to test us," he reportedly said. This wasn't ignored or minimized. It escalated the crisis. American intelligence satellites captured unusual movements around Venezuelan airbases. Analysts noticed new equipment, new defensive setups, and foreign presence helping upgrade radar systems. That triggered the Pentagon. Naval assets increased their patrols in the Caribbean. Reconnaissance aircraft flew closer to Venezuelan airspace. Washington wanted two things: pressure and control. Then came the statement that raised the temperature to the highest level. Asterisk, all options are on the table. Asterisk, for the American public, this sounded like typical tough rhetoric. For Maduro's inner circle, it sounded like an imminent intervention. Inside the Miraflores Palace, the atmosphere shifted to emergency footing. Troops patrolled corridors, helicopters circled the capital, intelligence units monitored foreign communications non-stop. Maduro was preparing for the possibility, however small, of U.S. military action. Facing this, Maduro made a risky move. He loosened control on armed civilian groups and paramilitary factions. Washington saw that as destabilizing and dangerous. Trump saw it as evidence that Venezuela was becoming a regional security threat. And the U.S. response became even harder. More sanctions, more international isolation, more pressure aimed at breaking the regime from the inside. Things hit the peak when U.S. intelligence received reports of unidentified Venezuelan military aircraft performing maneuvers near the Colombian border. To Trump's team, this looked like a test or a signal. Washington immediately responded with diplomatic warnings, reinforced military presence in the region, and a new wave of sanctions targeting key economic sectors. Trump made one thing clear across multiple statements: Maduro would not be recognized as a legitimate leader under any circumstances. At this point, both sides were fully locked in. Trump was unwilling to back down because appearing weak on a hostile authoritarian regime in America's own hemisphere was politically unacceptable. Maduro couldn't back down because stepping aside meant prison, exile, or worse. This wasn't a negotiation. It was a collision course. As the crisis deepened, Venezuela continued sliding into collapse. The U.S. continued applying pressure with surgical precision. The language from both sides hardened. Maduro accused Washington of attempting a coup. Trump called Maduro a dictator, destroying his own nation. Neither leader signaled retreat, neither leader softened the rhetoric. This wasn't a symbolic standoff. It was a geopolitical confrontation, where one side pushed relentlessly and the other clung to power with whatever resources it had left. The tension didn't decrease because neither man was built to step back. The stakes were too high, the risks too wide, and the consequences too dangerous. In the end, what defines this chapter isn't dialogue, diplomacy, or negotiations. It's raw, unfiltered pressure. Power met resistance. Washington amplified the squeeze. Caracas dug in. Trump pushed to dismantle a regime he viewed as hostile. Maduro fought to survive in a collapsing nation, surrounded by adversaries.